There was once a small girl that lived in a big house with her parents. She lived a happy life, as she was with her mother and father in a big house with plenty of room to play. But one day that happy life came to an end. The girl's mother got very sick and was close to her end. Realizing this, the mother brought the girl to her side and told her to remain good and fair. For then our dear God will always protect you, and I will look down on you from heaven and be near you, which is an excerpt of an allusion from Cinderella. And with that, she died. The girl and her father were very sad by the mother's death. The girl went out to her mother's grave every day and wept, and yet she remained pious and good, which is an excerpt showing the symbolism of hope of her mother's grave from Cinderella. A few months later, the girl's father remarried, bringing hope to the girl that the void left in her by her mother's death might be filled. With the girl's new stepmother came 2 new stepsisters, and the big house was full again with the sounds of happier days. But times were soon to get hard once again for the girl. Her new stepfamily forced her to labor the tasks of a housemaid, with no pay or appreciation. She described her stepsisters as beautiful, with fair faces but evil and dark hearts, which is an example of an epithet from Cinderella. There she had to do hard work from morning until evening, get up before daybreak, carry water, make the fires, cook, and wash. Besides this, the sisters did everything imaginable to hurt her. They made fun of her, they scattered peas and lentils into the ashes for her, so she had to sit and pick them out again. In the evening, when she had worked herself weary, there was no bed for her. Instead, she had to sleep by the hearth in the ashes, which is an excerpt from Cinderella. Her stepfamily treated her poorly, and because she always looked dusty and dirty, they called her Cinderella, which is another excerpt of an epithet from Cinderella. Our hero's journey begins here, with the ordinary world, in which the girl, Cinderella, is introduced to her new stepfamily and is forced to choose between following the orders of her stepmother or living freely. Now it happened that the king proclaimed a festival that was to last 3 days. All of the beautiful young girls in the land were invited, so that his son could select a bride for himself, which is an excerpt from Cinderella. Cinderella's journey continues with the call to adventure, where the proclamation made by the king shakes up her world by allowing her the chance to attend the festival. Cinderella's stepsisters were excited to attend. They had Cinderella help them with everything they needed for the festival, but she wanted to go too, and upon asking her stepmother for permission, she replied, "You, Cinderella?" she said. "You, all covered with dust and dirt, and you want to go to the festival? You have neither clothes nor shoes, and yet you want to dance," which is an excerpt from Cinderella. With this denial of Cinderella the right to go to the festival, our hero reaches her refusal of the call, as she is turned away from the event, though in this case it is due to another person, not her own doing. Confined to her home, Cinderella returns to her hazel tree and begs to go to the festival. Then the bird threw a gold and silver dress down to her, and the slippers were embroidered with silk and silver. She quickly put on the dress and went to the festival, which is an excerpt from Cinderella. By receiving the means to leave her house and attend the festival, Cinderella is crossing the threshold as she enters the new world of the kingdom's festival. Dressed in her new clothes, Cinderella goes to the festival. There she steals the show, and the prince, who will not allow any other person to dance with her. He's captivated by her beauty, but as much fun as she has at the festival, every night Cinderella must sneak away from the festivities so that she is able to make it home before her family. On the first night, she hides in a chicken coop. On the second, she climbs as nimbly as a squirrel into the branches of a pear tree, which is an excerpt of a simile from Cinderella. Each time the prince follows after her, but to no avail, as she always manages to slip away. On the third night, though, the prince was ready. When evening came, Cinderella wanted to leave, and the prince tried to escort her, but she ran away from him so quickly he could not follow her. The prince, however, had set a trap. He had the entire stairway smeared with pitch. When she ran down the stairs, her left slipper stuck in the pitch. The prince picked it up, which is an excerpt from Cinderella. By getting stuck in the pitch smeared by the prince, Cinderella experienced the ordeal, in which she had to face her greatest fear, which was not making it back to her house in time. Cinderella speeds back to her house, quickly so no one knows she had ever left. She tried to push the memories of the festival from her mind, however happy they were, but with her golden slipper in the hands of the prince, there was no forgetting. The next morning, he went with it to the man and said to him, "No one shall be my wife except for the one whose foot fits this golden shoe," which is an excerpt from Cinderella. With that, the prince traveled across the kingdom in search of his mysterious dance partner, finally stumbling upon the house of Cinderella and her stepsisters. Both the sisters desperately wanted to have the slipper fit, so much that they cut off portions of their feet in order to have it fit. 2 times the prince thought he had his soon-to-be wife, but both times he had to return the woman with their foot soaked in blood. Finally, the prince requested the final daughter of the household. He was met with a lot of denial, but the prince insisted on it, and they had to call Cinderella. She first washed her hands and face clean, and then went and bowed down before the prince, who gave her the golden shoe, which is an excerpt from Cinderella. Because of the prince's persistent actions in regards to finding his future wife, our hero, Cinderella, goes through the resurrection, during which she is tested one final time back in the ordinary world. She sat down on a stool, pulled her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the slipper, and it fitted her perfectly. When she stood up, the prince looked into her face and recognized the beautiful girl who had danced with him. He cried out, "She is my true bride," which is an excerpt from Cinderella. And with that, the prince discovered his wife, and she was whisked away to the palace to be married. At the end of the story, Cinderella becomes known to the prince for who she really is, thus experiencing the return of the elixir, in which she is given the power to, finally, leave her abusive family and live a happy life of her own. Cinderella and the prince are married, and on their wedding day, the two stepsisters come to make amends with her. Unfortunately for them, they don't get very far, as their eyes were pecked out by pigeons, leaving them blind for the rest of their lives. In the end, we can learn from Cinderella that sometimes it takes a little weight and a little pain for the good to show. Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree, and cried out, "Shake and quiver, little tree, throw gold and silver down to me," which is an excerpt from Cinderella. Our hero did her time, and she lived happily ever after. The end.